Okay, going live. It'll be about, there we go. All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Cook. I'm the open source community manager at Mattermost. I'm here with Colin Eng. He's our engineering intern, and today he's going to walk us through how to set up a developer environment. This is a stream that we're doing for Hacktoberfest. And so if anyone's joining from Hacktoberfest, I hope that this is this is informative and valuable. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat and we will get to it. So yeah, without further ado, Colin, take it over.
Thank you, Emily. So hey, today we're going to be working on the Windows version of Mattermost and trying to set that up. Just a quick disclaimer before we get right into the meat of things. Windows is a very broad range of things, a lot of different types of configurations for Windows, a lot of different technologies you can use for Windows, and what we'll be using is an unofficial guide. So your mileage may vary on the sort of different instructions that we'll be using today. So just bear that in mind as we go forward. This will also be done live, so if anything explodes and anything goes wrong, we're going to roll with it, and we're going to try and get through all of it today. It's a bit of an involved process, so please pay attention, and as Emily said, please put the questions in the chat and we'll try and answer them as they come up or near the end. All right, without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so I'm on the mattermost.com website, and let's first find the code that we're going to be downloading and cloning. So let's go over to contribute on the Mattermost site. Let's go to core platform development. That opens in a new tab, and let's start with the server repo. So we go down to server, and we go down to the repository on GitHub. All right. So here's the Mattermost server. It has all of the files here that you need for the server. Has a bit of an introduction, which you can read on your own time. What we will be doing first is we'll be forking the repo so that we can use it for development later. I've already forked it, but if you aren't aware of how forking works, you just click the fork on GitHub, and it'll create a fork of the repo underneath your account. So this is my repo over here. So it looks almost exactly the same as what we have on the original Mattermost repo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the instructions first. So we go down to developer machine setup under install Mattermost. And let's go over here. So this is the instructions that we'll be using for the server side. And then after the server side, we'll be going through the web app portion. So my platform is going to be Windows, so we're going to be focusing on Windows today. The recommended and, well, not necessarily recommended, but the one that seems to be the most popular is Macintosh. So if you'd like, you can follow along with Macintosh. But for now, we're going to be using Windows with Windows subsystem for Linux. So as it says here, this is an unofficial guide. So just a reminder, your mileage may vary, so be careful. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to install Windows subsystem for Linux. Basically what that is a subsystem of Windows that runs a Linux instance. I'm not exactly sure on all the details, but basically it'll allow us to run Mattermost on Linux while we're using Windows machine. So I've already downloaded WSL, and specifically I've downloaded WSL version 2. You can also use WSL 1, but I found that WSL 2 works better for performance in my case. All right, so let's go right into the instructions here. So after we've downloaded WSL for Linux or WSL 2, we're going to go and check our Windows version. So let me go over to PowerShell. And here are the PowerShell over here. I'm going to check which Windows version I have. So it popped up another window, and I'm going to look for the version number. It's 1909, and that's higher than the one that we need for this top instruction. If ours was before 1803, then we would be using this version over here. All right, so we're going to first go and create a file. And I'm going to bring over my terminal from Ubuntu. So when I installed WSL, I chose Ubuntu as the Linux distro that I'll be using. You can also use other ones if you prefer. I'm not super familiar on which ones you need to use or should use, but I've chosen Ubuntu. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new file underneath the /etc directory. So I'm going to use vim, which is a file editor I can use in the terminal. And I've already created it here. One difference that you may see is that I have options equals metadata. That's just something that has worked for me, as it may not necessarily work for you, but you will need to put the words auto mount in square brackets, as well as root equals /. From my understanding, what this does is instead of making your root directory of your WSL instance at wnt/c, it'll put it at / and then c. All right, so we're just going to exit out of vim. Oops, and we're not going to write anything there. And now we're going to set up Docker. So Docker is something that you'll need for Mattermost to work. I'm not going to show you how to install it right this moment, just because it's a very involved process sometimes. I don't want to mess anything up for the later portion of this tutorial. But suffice it to say, what you'll be doing is you'll be installing Docker for Windows. So if we go over here, we can see that we have something called Docker Desktop for Windows, and we're going to follow you should follow these instructions on your own time and make sure Docker is running. It doesn't require anything super technical. It's just downloading an app called Docker Desktop. And then afterwards, you'll need to link Docker Desktop with WSL or WSL 2. I've already set up Docker over here. So this is Docker Desktop. I have some instances of Docker already on my computer since I've been doing development. But at the very beginning, you'll see a startup screen, and that'll lead you through the process of starting up Docker Desktop. One thing that you'll need to do that's different from these instructions is that you'll need to just go over here. You'll need to put settings something like this. I'm using WSL2, so I'm using a WSL2 based engine. And you also want to expose the daemon on TCP 2375. I'm actually not sure if you need to use this option if you have a different configuration set up, but for me, this is what works for me. Another thing you'll want to do is you'll want to go to Resources, WSL Integration, and make sure that you have integration with your default WSL distro. In my case, that's Ubuntu. That just means that it's linked, and that Docker will see that distro and will say, "Hey, I'm here. Let me work on Ubuntu." And I believe that's everything that's relevant on the settings page. So we're just going to close that for now. Over here, it says that we'll be using Docker Compose to manage the containers. I would investigate on your own time whether you need to run these commands. And this is just for if you are, if you have an existing container on your Docker instance, and that you want to keep those and port those over if you are doing this for the second or third time. So yeah, these may or may not work for you. I haven't tried them out personally. But you'll definitely need Docker Compose. I have already downloaded Docker Compose, so I won't be showing you exactly how to do that. But these two commands should serve you well. And now what we're going to do is after we get Docker set up, WSL set up, we're going to go ahead and get Go downloaded. So Go is our language that we use for the server. And we'll be using the latest Go version from golang/dl. So let's go ahead and go to the downloads page. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out one, what our operating system is, and two, which version we'll need. So in my case, I figured out that I need Go 1.7.2 with Linux because I'm using WSL, which is a subsystem for Linux, and AMD 64. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and put that in a note. And then I'm going to go back to the developer setup, and I'm going to first run these two commands. So let's go back to our terminal here. So this first command, just make sure that we install the right build. Okay, and as you can see, I've already downloaded all of those packages, so I don't need to do anything else. And the second thing you'll want to do is you'll want to remove your current Go instance if you have one already. So that's what this command does. I'm not going to do that right this second, just because I know that there are some issues, and I want to make sure that we get through this installation process as cleanly as possible. So we're going to skip that for now. And then we're going to download the .tar.gz file from the Go repo, or it's not a Go repo, the Go website. Basically, this is kind of like a zip file. It's kind of like a file that has all the necessary binary files that you'll want to use for Go. So we're just going to first download that from Google. And to do that, we're going to go back to our, we made a note earlier about our version, our OS, and our architecture. And we're just going to modify this command a bit, where version is the version, OS is your operating system, and architecture is our architecture. So I'm just going to get that from another notepad I have up here. And I'm going to go back here and download it. See, it's downloading on the bottom. All right, and we're good to go. So I've already have one saved, but this should be something like the file name that you have here. We're going to take a note of this, and we're just going to copy this. And then our second command basically unzips or unpacks this binary file into our user local file. So we're going to, again, make note of the version, the operating system, and the architecture, and then we're going to basically unpack that in our local file, and that will replace our removed /go that we removed in the second command. So again, I'm not going to unpack this quite at this moment just because it might ruin things up. But yeah, once you get that, you should have your Go directory with all the Go files that you need. And the next up, what we're going to do is we're going to link our mount of Go with our Linux version of Go, or our Linux directory for Go. So you want to run these two commands. Again, not going to run them today. But what I want to focus on is this command over here. So basically, you need to have two things. You need to have a path and a Go path. Your Go path is basically an environment variable that tells your system, hey, this is where all of our files are. Please look over here and look in this file for if you want to use Go, or if you want to use or if you want to compile Go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our terminal, and we're going to go to bat.bashrc. I found that bashrc works for me, and that .z/shrc doesn't work. So let's use bashrc. So we're going to go to this, and you see I've already put it over here. So this is a configuration file that basically, well, it's a configuration file for your bash terminal. And we want to add these 3 lines. So we have home, which is the file path of home, and then the path as this, and then the second one as path as this. So that just links the files that we downloaded up here to our path. So after we've done that, we want to reload the terminal, make sure all of our changes were saved. So that's no issue for us. And now let's go on to the cloning part. So we've got all of our technology set up, and now let's get to the actual code. So we've already forked the Mattermost server from GitHub. So let's go ahead and figure out where and clone that. So I'm going to go over to my fork of that repo. I believe it is over here. I'm just going to change this to a username. And I'm going to clone this. I like using SSH. And we'll go back to the instructions, and we're just going to clone that into this new Mattermost directory. Of course, make sure that you're logged in, you have your account set up, and that you have your credentials and all that sort of fun stuff with GitHub set up. Just going to wait here for a second while it downloads. And after it downloads, we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to go ahead and start the server. All right, so if we look in our directory, we have the files that we downloaded earlier, as well as Mattermost server. So let's go ahead and navigate to that directory, and let's do these instructions up here. So we want to start the server and test our environment. So first thing was we went to the server, and then we're going to learn our first important run command for, our first make command for Mattermost development. We're going to do make run server, and we're going to hope that it works. Okay, good. So everything's getting set up. We can see that we have a bunch of different services that are starting up. The first time this happens, you may need, it may take a bit of time just to download everything, make sure everything's working on the Docker side as well. We're going to wait for this to work. We're going to wait for this to complete. And then we're going to ping the our localhost instance just to make sure that everything's working properly. And we're going to hope and pray that everything works out well. And yeah, Emily, if there are any questions, now's a good time to ask.
No questions so far. You're doing great.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so we're just waiting for it to wake up. Okay, while we wait for this to wake up, why don't we go ahead and set up the web app portion? So I'm going to make a new terminal window. And I'm just going to go down to here. So we will return to this after we get the server set up, or the server responds. So let's go over to web app developer setup. So we have the server side set up, and now we're going to get the web app set up. And the web app is actually much simpler than the server side was. And it's actually pretty much the same for all different operating systems and setups. So we set up our development environment for the Mattermost server, and we just need NVM. or NVM on Windows, which is a package manager for Node. But we're going to download Node using NVM or Homebrew or whatever. And then we may need lib.png or libpng. Again, depends on whether you have it or not. And then we're going to fork the Mattermost web app. So we have our Mattermost web app here. Pretty much the same thing as the server, but for the web app portion. And then we're going to fork that. And as before, I've already forked it, so we don't have to go through the process of waiting. And so we're first going to go to my repo, and we're going to clone it. So first, let's see if that worked. Cool. So we're just going to hop back onto the server side for a bit and just verify that everything's working. So we have all these different timestamps of the debug messages that we're getting. And we're just going to quickly ping our server, make sure everything's working handy dandy. Ooh, not that one. We're just going to ping this. And it says status okay, great. And we're just going to do one last thing here, and we're going to stop the server. So, oops. So make stop will pretty much do the same thing as make stop server. But yeah, we're just going to stop the server for now and then focus on the web app. So let's go back to this one, and let's go back to the web app portion, and we're going to do that step of cloning the web app. Just going to clear my terminal here. All right, and again, we wait. All right, it is done. All right, let's go back to our web app portion. So we've cloned the repo, and now we want to link the client directory in our server with the dist directory in our web app. So let's go ahead and copy these commands. So we're going to go into the web app directory, not the server directory, like that. So now if we look at repo, we have dist and Mattermost, Mattermost-web app. And we're going to go back to the Mattermost server over here, and then we're going to link the server and client, and then go back. So let's go back and clear everything up. Everything's super pretty before we have the final test of making sure that it works. Okay, so first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to run the server, make run server, and then go to the web app and go ahead and make run. You can do make test if you want. I'm just not going to do that right now. I see what happened. Let me just double check that I did everything right here. Just gonna clear that up. All right, so we typed in make run here. This runs the Mattermost web app. I believe you can also do make run and make run server in either one of the repos, and that will start either the server or web app respectively. But yeah, let's go ahead and make sure that everything's working correctly. So if everything works, we should see on localhost 8065 that our Mattermost instance is running. That may take a bit of time to work. So we're just gonna wait. We're gonna relax for a bit. We're gonna hope and pray that everything works.
And while you're waiting for that, if anyone is new to the stream, hi, welcome. Please ask any questions that you may have in the chat and I will field them to Colin. We are also putting our the guide that he's following in the description box of the video, as well as how to get started contributing to Mattermost, how to join our community server, and some more information on Hacktoberfest. So yeah, welcome. Glad that you're here. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions.
So the first time we set up the web app and the server, it may take a bit of time to just download everything, get everything in the right places. If it takes a little bit, if it takes too much time, I can also use my backup. But for now, we're just going to wait, sit tight.
So Colin, while we're waiting, how about you tell us a little bit about like what you've been doing while you've been here at Mattermost, some of the stuff you've been working on.
Sure. So I'm currently on one of the channels teams, which basically we work on the channels portion of Mattermost. So there are like three versions of three important products of Mattermost. There's the boards, which used to be focal board. There's playbooks, and there's the channels. So working on the channels part. I'm mostly focused on the web app portion of the product. Yeah, I guess the most interesting thing I've done so far is we had this thing called productivity. We had a productivity sprint a couple of weeks ago where we just tried. We had a bunch of tickets that we wanted to get to try out and a bunch of features that we wanted to explore. And I took on a feature that would hopefully let us preview a channel before we joined it, although that's in the works right now. But yeah, mostly doing some web app stuff, trying to get a little bit into the server. Yeah, mostly like styling changes and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Awesome. How have you liked work interning at Mattermost so
Oh, I
far?
love it. I
Yeah.
love the flexibility. Everything's like it's async first, so there's a lot of flexibility with like when you need to get things done and when you need to like when you need to be online because it's all online. You don't have to transit. Yeah, and I like the open source aspect of it, like the fact that everything's like online, anyone can contribute, like we're doing right now. That's really cool to me. And yeah, my team is also really great. And yeah, the fact that we're doing like a stream for Hacktoberfest is also pretty exciting as well.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Yeah, if there's anyone interested in like contributing for the first time for our open source project, I did put the guide to contributing in our description box. So feel free to check that out. Like Colin said earlier, like our server repository is mainly in Go. So if you are wanting to get Go experience, I know that that's pretty popular nowadays in the Hacktoberfest community. So we have some good first issues that are still available for anyone who's like beginner level. And even if you're not beginner level, most of our open issues are labeled on the difficulty, 1, beginner, medium, and hard. So yeah, and I mean, we have a bunch of other ways to contribute too. You can contribute to our docs. I'm just realizing that my video is not on, so you're just hearing my voice. Sorry, everybody. Um, but yeah, so you can contribute to our docs. You can contribute translations. You can contribute QA. You can contribute to our new apps framework, which is our like integration platform or integration building platform. And yeah, lots of ways to contribute. So I'll pass it back off to you, Colin.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah, check out the Hacktoberfest stuff. All right, so this is taking a little bit too much time, so I'm just gonna use my backup here. So let's put this away. I have another terminal here with all of the other stuff. And there's nothing fancy going on here. Just this one is already up and ready to go. And this one should be faster than that one. Okay, that's not a good sign. Uh-oh. Let's just make sure that everything here is closed. Ooh. Just gonna stop the other one and make sure this one. Oh no, we have run into some problems. All right, I think that is an issue that we don't. I'm not sure if I've seen this before. Wow. All right, so what's usually supposed to happen is the web app starts and it will look at the server and start showing up the Mattermost, like a local Mattermost instance where you can play around with. But it seems like my configuration has some problems. Uh-oh. Yeah, I will need to take a look at that later. But yeah, basically, this is pretty much all there is to do, or all there is to do to set up Mattermost for development. You'll just need to use the make run command to start the web app and the make run server command to start the server. And then once there, you can set up a local instance of Mattermost, play around with things, and then start developing. Yeah, and why don't I show you a bit of the code while we're at it? Because we talked about Go. Let's talk a little bit about like, yeah, what you can do with the different parts. So we have the server and the Mattermost repo on the left. So here's the server code. It's written all in Go. And here's the web app portion, which is written in JavaScript, TypeScript. There are also some SCSS files, which are pretty much styly, fun, cascading style sheets. So I'll give an example here. Let's take a look at maybe the admin console. So let's look at console. Ooh, this is the Cypress one. So this is written in JavaScript. This is let me see what this is. Oh, this is a configuration file here in Cypress. Let's try and look at something else, like a TypeScript file. So everything is built on, or not everything, but some of the files are built on TypeScript with React. React is also a very popular framework, I think. And here, this is for the admin console. So when you set up your local instance, you'll be able to log in as an admin user, and yeah, you'll be looking at the admin console a bit to do some configuration, and you can also do things like change any of it, any of this code, like this, for example. Let's just get rid of this. But this will break things, but just to show you like how the development process works, we're going to save this, and we're going to just stop the server for a bit. So when you're working on the web app, you can just save it, and Webpack should watch your changes and just refresh them automatically. But when you're working on the server, you have to use another command. So if I were to edit any of these files in the server repo, I would have to use make restart server, or just make stop and then make run server again. But yeah, that's pretty much it for getting Mattermost set up for development. I'm sorry I wasn't able to show you a local instance of Mattermost, but it seems like Webpack didn't want us to do that today. But yeah, that'll be about it. I can answer some questions that I can now. Yeah, thank y'all for sticking with us.
Thank you so much, Colin. Oh, there we go. Thanks so much, Colin, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We didn't have any questions. I did post in the chat. So if you are also going through this and you run into your own issues, we have a Mattermost community server that you can join. We have a peer-to-peer help channel, which would be the best place to go and ask questions. We have people on standby who will be more than happy to help you debug. And if you have any additional questions for Colin or for any of us, you can join that community server, and we have a Hacktoberfest channel. So just search for the Hacktoberfest channel. Actually, I'll go ahead and post that also in the chat. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. I hope that this was informative and helpful to see Colin go through this. And yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. I think we can go ahead and maybe end the stream. Again, my name is Emily Cook. This is Colin Eng. You can find us both in the community server. I'm at emily.cook, and Colin, I think you're colin.eng, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can find either of us in the community server. Feel free to message us, reach out to us. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And thank you, Colin, for your wonderful walkthrough. And
no problem.
Yeah, and we will hopefully see you all on the server. So, okay, bye, everybody.